Well, hello everybody. Here we are back again. Cassie and I just the two of us this week. And this week we've got some fun things to talk about. But here we are under the eclipse with Mercury about to station retrograde. So I'm hoping all this recording goes well. But anyway, sorry, I've been having so many technical issues. And somebody told me it was a cop out blaming all the energies, but no, I don't think it is. Anyway, two retrogrades with eclipses. That's wonky. Anyway, here we are. So, Kathy, we don't have much in the way of news, but of course, I think we need to mention they are voting on the continuing resolution in the USA for keeping the government open on their terrible budget proposals. So I don't know if we're probably not going to look at that, but that's happening. So look for what happens in that. But what other news do you? Oh, by the way, I'm Louise Edington, Cosmic Owl Astrology, louiseeddington.com. All my details below, in my YouTube channel and in Cassie's as well. And we'd love it if you would follow both of us, on our YouTube channels to support us both because we post this on both our channels. So, Kathy.
I'm Kathy Biehl. My YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. My website is empowermentunlimited.net. Two things of note. First is I am participating in the two-day Astrology Day symposium that Maurice Fernandez has set up. There, I have a description. There's a link to it. If you go to mauricefernandez.com/ I think Astrology Day does it. It's free on the 19th. A bunch of astrologers are going to discuss the equinox chart. On the 20th, there are a sequence of 15-minute presentations. It's all free. I'm on the 20th, just before noon Eastern time, and I'm talking about translating astrological jargon into language that non-astrologers can understand, which is something I endeavor to do here. The other thing is my Patreon, patreon.com/Kathy Biehl has my own longer analysis of the solstice chart available for a one-off. And also, finally, I want to acknowledge and thank the people who have been sending Louise and me on social media and by private message and email bits of news as it breaks. We really appreciate it. Often we already know it, but that doesn't matter. I really appreciate the support, and occasionally you throw something our way that makes us go, whoa, didn't see that. So thank you very much, all of you who have been doing that.
And it's one of those things that we're going to be kind of that led to something we're going to talk to today. But Kathy's way better. Kathy's way better at me at remembering to mention all the things. But I should mention that I am presenting at the OPA Astrology, the Organization for Professional Astrology, AstroBiz Summit. That's April the 25th to the 27th. That's more focused on the business of astrology and how to grow your business. And I will be presenting on using Substack as an astrologer and how to use it, how to set it up, all those kind of things. So I'll put the link for that, but you can also find it at opaastrology.org, opaastrology.org. And it's a great business summit. OPA is my favorite astrology business organization, which is why I work with them a lot. So I'm supposed to be mentioning that a lot. So thank you for the nudge, Kathy. All right, Cassie, where are we going to start today with what
Brief news roundup. These are things that have been happening that track what Louise and I have been seeing in astrology. Protests, people in the streets, that's fitting the Venus retrograde like crazy. Jewish protesters took over the lobby of Trump Tower to protest the arrest of a Palestinian student. So parse that one out. And they all got arrested. But anyway, Trump Tower occupied. That was a kind of, well, anyway, I'll leave my commentary out about that. Courts are continuing to knock back pretty much everything that this administration is doing. Most recently, a judge ordered the reinstatement of probationary employees who've been fired
Mhm.
at 7 agencies, 2
Wasn't
judges.
it two judges? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, at any rate, many of the agencies are going back. Doge's destruction of documents at USAID has been paused. We'll see what happens with that. Um, you can, Jamie Raskin, a representative, has on his site, and I've got it up on Facebook. And if you, I'll try to remember to put it in the links. You can demand that under the Privacy Act that Doge let you know who they've told all your private information to. And that's a really satisfying form to send. That has to go by mail. Let's see. The Trump's attack on a law firm that's representing, I believe it's Jack Smith, one of his perceived opponents, has been slapped down by a court. So that's pushing back on things this administration is doing. Secondly, European international ramifications. The tariff war continues to go in many, many directions, and it's spreading to many countries. And EU countries are now finding, numbers of them are finding other suppliers for military equipment, and they're cutting their contracts with US defense companies. That is going to make a difference. EU EU leaders from in NATO met without the US to discuss military options. And two other big things in that regard. A container ship hit a U.S. tanker on its way with fuel to refuel Navy ships. Russian captain on the container ship. The UK has arrested him. And Tesla's sales are plummeting, and this is important because Musk has pledged Tesla stock as the collateral for a whole bunch of his loans. So now we've got the attorney general saying that, people are going to be prosecuted for protesting Tesla. So we'll see what happens with that. Those are big things. There are ongoing issues about immigration, about Columbia University is getting threatened with all kinds of fines, more or the withholding of their grants over anti-Semitism because of Palestinian students having a really successful and long protests there last year, and arrest warrants have gone out for 2 more students. So that's more on the U.S. Neptune in the 9th house getting hit by this eclipse. Lots more. I encourage you to look at what's going on from the lens of this is playing out what they said.
Yep, it really is. And there's so much. Kathy has is I'm immersed in running my Venus class, so thankfully Kathy has been keeping me up to date with the news. But we kind of we're going to look first at a couple of charts that were kind of instigated by. Oh, sorry, yeah, you first,
Well,
Kathy.
before we do that, let's just lay out
Oh,
what the
yes,
next week
the
is like
aspect. Yeah.
astrologically and see what you can watch for. Now, we're recording this just as the full moon has occurred. It occurred a few hours ago, the lunar eclipse, trining Uranus. So it was in an easy flow of change and revelations and shocking breaks. Mercury goes retrograde, is stationing retrograde. It turns retrograde on the 15th. Venus is already retrograde, so this is going to be kind of a double whammy. They're in the same part of the sky. They're both in Aries, both ruled by, well, at this moment, they're answering to Mars. They're in, I'm not going to take it anymore. People are going to be very hot-headed. Probably a lot of things having to do with the military, with anger, with men, with people being fed up. Just watch for that. And remember the usual Mercury retrograde cautions about people misunderstanding. If with everyone being very hot-headed, misunderstandings could really be rampant, especially because the sun is with the North Node, and by the 19th, it's going to be conjunct Neptune, the planet I call the cosmic fog machine, but it's at the very pinnacle of maximum unhinging from ordinary earthly reality. So everyone's going to be a space case. And
Oh
then
yeah.
then the sun moves into Aries on the 20th. It's the annual, it's the equinox, it's the spring, it's start of spring in the northern hemisphere, fall in the southern. And right after this happens, the sun meets Venus retrograde, and they both make an opportunity aspect to Pluto. There's something about money, there's something about women standing up, there's something about people walking their values. What will this be, the oligarchy and technology coming at us, or us doing something about it, getting very clear, sharpening, bringing communities and networks more and more and more together? You can see not just people in the streets with this, but also the growing economic fighting that is going on, conscious consumerism, people pulling back from businesses that are owned by multi-billionaires and spending less and putting their money into um, locally owned businesses.
Mm.
Now,
And
Louise, you know other things that are going on.
yeah, yeah. Well, that day, well, the solstice, that whole little period, with, sorry, not the solstice, the equinox, with
I
the
always
sun in
forget.
Aries, I know, with the sun end, but which means equal day, equal night, by the way, for those that don't know. It's when they are equal in both sides of the planet. But that day, the 22nd, is also when it's the last quarter moon, so it's the halfway point between the two eclipses. So that's always a pivotal point. So it's the Venus star point, the last quarter moon, but all at 2 degrees. And it's also the very day that the moon reaches its maximum declination point off the ecliptic at this lunar standstill or lunar maximum period that we're in. So it's kind of like reaching this real peak, and things are going to really start to shift fast after that point for so many reasons. And just to add to what Kathy said about the Venus Sun conjunction, the star point, it can also mean people coming back who were kind of in your personal life, but also like in the greater life as well, that had kind of disappeared for a little bit. Venus can bring people back in. So, and we have noticed that already with emails from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz saying back together again, which is kind of like really kind of weird. But anyway, we might have more to say about that, or not weird, but But I love how things like this show up. It's like literally that is a representation of people suddenly coming back, you know. Okay.
Which is the theme of what we want to talk about today.
It is. So who are we going to start with?
Let's start with Mike Pence
Yeah, let me just get his
and his
chart.
wife. The part of the inspiration from this, now Mike Pence has been posting a lot lately. Mike has been making actually very strong statements against a lot of what the Trump administration has been doing. And oh, I like that you put Pence noon chart. I should start doing that.
I
That,
know.
that
Well,
means we
well, I
don't have
lost.
time.
I lost a load of my charts, so I'm having to recreate them. So I'm doing them better now. So anyway, that's a retrograde thing, isn't it? So there you go. Redo. Anyway, sorry.
I believe he's speaking out against, I believe, the idiocy of tariffs, which, by the way, even on Fox News, even on Fox News, people have been questioning. Somebody on CNBC, a financial commentator, actually said what's going on is insane.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I forgot to mention. Anyway, Pence has been making really, really pointed statements attacking what this administration has been doing. And an account called Healing Through Tarot
Mhm.
has been doing spreads and picking up a Queen of Pentacles who's going to be real important. And she actually did a long spread on who's the Queen of Pentacles and came up with Mike Pence. And we will explain
And
why in a
and
minute.
that's on Substack, by the way. So you can find healing through with a THRU
Mhm.
um, on Substack if you want to go and read the post. And somebody sent us that, so this is what we meant by people sending us things. So, and her post was kind of also in inspired by, if for those of you that remember, at Jimmy Carter's funeral,
Yes.
Trump went down the line and schmoozed with all the other leaders at the funeral, and Karen Pence sat there like a stone. She would not look at him, she would not get up, she would not say hi to him, she would not shake his hand. So there's been lots of speculation about why Mother is doing that, because he calls her. All right, so what do we want to say? Well, a look at the Gemini energy. Oh my lord. Or, or the Pisces and Virgo eclipse energy is activating his Gemini for a start. So
And and the eclipse is also pressuring his Mercury at 21 Gemini, forcing him to speak out, forcing
Mhm.
him to speak out. He could not sit quietly with what has been going on.
And Neptune is sat at that last degree of Pisces, square to his moon, Mother. I just find it like all the mother symbolism in all this is quite really is kind of amusing. But also he has Chiron at 27 degrees, you know, no matter what time we his chart is actually at, and that's on the moon of the USA. So, you know, you might not love his politics, but I think he's quite emotionally connected to the USA as a state, you know, or a country. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He has Venus and Mars at 0 and 3 degrees Leo. The US North Node is at 6 Leo. So he's got his values and what he does and what he believes in and how he puts it forward is consistent with this country. And interestingly, along with that, look at this Aries placement. He's got Eris, which is the table tipper, and his south node, his default way of being, he just fight for stuff, is where the Venus retrograde started, and he started speaking up against his former ally, seventh house. Uh,
And and against an allies in Libra too. So yeah. Yeah.
and the Venus, the Mercury retrograde is taken off there as well. So he's got more to say. And the solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries at the end of the month is there as well. So Pence has things to do. He's not
Mhm.
just a statesman in retirement. We'll be hearing more from him. And
And Pallas
maybe
Athena is at the opposite point as well, conjunct his North Node, and she is like justice, and you know, um, in Libra, she's wanting to, you know, speak for justice, basically. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, carry on.
no, and Gemini, the Jupiter in Gemini is going to be moving over his Sun and then his Mercury and then his Moon, whatever degree it is. So he's not going to go away. He's not going to be quiet. When Mars completes its retrograde, it's going to go back. He's going to have his Mars return later this spring, and then it's going to go across his Uranus. Something very surprising could be coming from him with all of this.
And to go back to that list of aspects we read out, you know, the that pivotal point around March 21st, 22nd, the star point is at 2 Aries, and that's everything is aspecting his Venus Mars by a lovely unbroken flow aspect, as Kathy calls it, which I love that expression, so I'm stealing
Please
it.
use it.
But that's fire, you know, that's kind of, you know, igniting his passion. You may not fully seen some of it, and I've never thought as of Pence as a passionate person, but you know, I think there's hidden depths there somewhere. So um he always seemed very dry to me. But anyway, you know, I think something's being like lit up within him, you know, to do this, you know, even add to that, you know, going back to those aspects, the star point is, you know, by 3 degrees square to his Saturn, and that last quarter moon is a moon in Capricorn on that same day, that real pivotal turning point. This is, you know, quite Astounding Astrology. I could put the eclipse chart up next to him just so people can get an idea of what some of that looks like by the next new moon. Do you want to have a look at that?
Sure, why not?
Mm.
Sear that 5-degree Capricorn Saturn into your mind. Just
Yeah,
remember that. Remember that.
yeah.
Remember it.
I might.
It's gonna be
I'm probably
important.
going to trim. I'm probably going to trim the video for that little bit. That's all right. But this is kind of the emerging from this eclipse period, and so this is that new moon eclipse right on his Eris. Look at this. Oh my goodness. And then Mercury is at the Aries point, which is the creation point, really. It's the astrological new year, it's new beginnings, all kinds is almost exactly in that unbroken flow aspect to his Venus. Jupiter, as Kathy mentioned, by then will be almost exactly on his sun. And even just using, an untimed chart. Look at this seventh house, and Ceres, the great mother, has moved into his house, and that's also significant because of. I just think he's got this mothering thing going on with both his wife and how he feels about the country. So, mhm, yeah,
More to
and,
come from him, and he
yeah.
could surprise us with the role he ends up playing.
Oh yes, he really could. Yes. Yes, he could. And some of these people I've always thought might surprise us, but in all in perfect timing, right? So, so shall we look at his wife's chart now?
Yes, because remember that 5-degree
Mhm.
Capricorn Saturn. Remember that?
I've always found Karen Pence quite an interesting character, and even more interesting now that I see her chart. I'd just like to mention, just character wise, she was born on a Capricorn new moon, and we do have an A-rated time for her. And so that was right at the base of her chart. So that is a root strong person. She is a very strong person. She kind of has that rule the roost vibe in the home, and not necessarily in a horrible way, but she is kind of the strength, the root of that family, I would say. In very many ways. Then again, that 10 Aries, and she's also got Eris there, as that whole generation does. We all have anybody born late 50s, early 60s has Eris around 8, 9, 10 of Aries, but it's conjunct her Ceres, the great mother, in Aries, which is also quite a force. And Uranus, Mars stationed retrograde on her Uranus. But anyway, Kathy, what do you also
Yeah,
see?
no, and so that's going to come out. I mean, something started going in her. I can imagine as the inauguration was approaching, she had probably post-traumatic stress disorder memories of things that happened when
Mm.
somebody was game to kill her husband. And notice that she has a grand trine in fire. That Uranus at 5 Leo is trining her Saturn at 5 Sagittarius, which trines that little trio in Aries. So when she gets going about something, I would get out of the way.
And just to go back to that Mercury and Venus retrograde stations, that's also both of them really are in that trine to her Saturn. And to go to that pivotal date as well, around the equinox and the Venus star point, Mercury will be at 5 Aries, and Mercury and Uranus are both kind of about communication and mind in various ways. So this is on her descendant, which is significant relationships. I think she'll be going, you have to speak out, you have to speak out. More, even more.
More, right.
Yeah.
And that eclipse at 9 degrees Aries at the end of the
I will
month
put that one. Mhm.
is it's setting off. Look at that. Right on her Eris and Ceres. and that is trining her Saturn. Saturn in Sagittarius has a very strong concept of what the rules are and actually wants to follow them. So she has her own beliefs and persistence of beliefs about what is right and about politics and about government. And I'm assuming she's fighting mad right now. I would not be surprised. And with that Mars at 13 Aries on her descendant, what's she going to do with all that anger? She's going to shove the man forward. So she's the force behind Pence. I don't see
Yeah.
her throwing a news conference, but
No, I
he's going to do more than just post statements, much more.
and this has been building, as Kathy said. I mean, before Pluto entered Aquarius, the last station direct before the very last degree one was right on her Mercury, and that's in the fourth house of the home as well. And in Capricorn, she's like, I want to uphold this. It's kind of very ethical. You might not kind of her ethics might be a little bit different to some of ours, but it is very ethical about no, you uphold this, you treat people right kind of thing, I think. Yeah.
Well, and since you mentioned that Mercury, how she communicates, how she thinks, notice that it is in a natural trine to her south node at 28 Taurus, and Uranus is inching its way into a conjunction with the south node
Yeah.
and a trine to her Mercury. So late in the spring, there could be more and really surprising things happening in her marriage that we will not see, that parlay themselves into Pence being more and more public. Who'd have thunk
I
it?
would. I know. But again, I think this has been building for a long time. Uranus last stationed retrograde at 27 Taurus, so close to her south node. So it's almost like all this has been stewing within her, and the fact that he won again has kind of like brought it out even more, and yeah, push, push, push. I think, yeah. The star point, the Venus star point at the equinox is also opposing her Jupiter. So there you go. The 2-degree Aries star point will be exactly opposing her Jupiter. So that's bringing out this fight for justice, really, I think, again. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep, I would agree.
Tough, tough woman. And, I might not admire her religious beliefs, but I kind of like her chart for her toughness and her strength. So, yeah. So I think we have to kind of meet each person as, what they're bringing to this now. Yeah. So, next,
The coach
Tim,
is back.
Timmy.
Tim Walz he's been doing what Bernie's been doing. He's going into red districts to talk about all kinds of things, reaching out to people. Last month, he was going to the Netherlands, going to
Yes,
NATO territory.
I know.
Now, now he's taking the stage in red states and
Yeah.
being America's coach. So, could you put the Virgo lunar eclipse around?
I can indeed. But I also said look at that area of Capricorn again that we've looked at in both Pence's chart and his wife's chart. So, that's
They're
just
on the same page. Five
they
Saturn at 5 Capricorn.
they
That's this.
are. I'm sorry, I'm just getting it up. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
So what I want to say about this is we don't have a timed chart for Tim, but the moon is somewhere in the very beginning of Aquarius, and Pluto's moving across that. So he's getting extraordinarily focused and intensified with what he has to say for the collective. And this is what feeds and fuels him and emotionally. And my experience with people with moon in Aquarius, matches what you're seeing from him. This is the guy that goes into the donut shop and makes friends with everybody there. This is the guy who's on a first name basis with the people at the dry cleaners, and in this guy's case, probably Napa Auto Parts store. So now he's doing this. He's doing this with all of the country very, very publicly. So that's one
Mhm.
big thing. And this,
Oh, and
it's
it's in an
trining,
yellow. Hmm. Hmm.
it's trining his Venus in the second house. So he values communicating, he values women, he values relationships. And could this be reviving a particular partnership with a woman? Sure smells like it to me. Just watch. Watch this space. Along those lines, in the outer circle in his 12th house, Venus retrograde at 7 Aries is heading for his Mars, and then the Mercury retrograde is going to happen there as well. Mercury's on his
And on his
Eris,
Eris.
so he's out there stirring up stuff.
Mhm.
He's also This is also where the eclipse is going to be at the end of the month. It's going to jettison him forward. Okay, so we're not done hearing from the coach. The one other thing I want to point out, and then, or two other things, and then I'll shut up and let Louise get into it. If you look at that Jupiter at 13 Gemini, it in the second house, as Jupiter moves forward, it's going to go into his third house of communication. So he's going to just get louder and louder and louder and louder. And it will this summer in June cross his north node in Cancer, pushing him into what he came into this life to do. You can look back
Abs-
12 years, it happened then, but this this is not retiring. This is not retiring. This is not retiring. And I just want to I will say I'm going to go on the record of saying this. Every Democratic leader whose chart we've looked at has something big, expansive, and empowering happening as we get toward summer. And now we're
Yep.
seeing it in Walls's chart as well. The final thing I want to say about this is look at that Mars at the bottom of the chart at 18 Cancer. It has been it's been trining his Neptune, but what it's doing is it's moving into a square, look the other direction, to his natal Jupiter at 28 Aries. That's incredible good fortune, but that's also absolute coach. Like I'm out there, rah, 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 pushing people on. Well, that's only going to get pumped up and pumped up and pumped up between now and the end of April.
And I
Just
do want to say that Mars is also making a watery grand trine to his Chiron in Pisces, which has been traversed by many planets recently. So that has a real kind of healing vibe. I'm out there, I want to bring healing. But Mercury, I want to just speak quickly to Mars retrograde. I can't remember the date Mars went retrograde now, but
December.
thank you. Mars went retrograde at 6 Leo, and he has so much at 6. But anyway, it went retrograde in a fire grand trine to his natal Mars and his Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, justice, and all kinds of things. But anyway, um, as Mars retraces its retrograde steps and goes back to that 6-degree Leo point, which is the north node of the USA as well, all that's going to be activated again. So that's how retrogrades work. They kind of go over these aspects and back and forth, and things come back later. So, but that's also, of course, the 6 Leo was also square his Mercury at 6 degrees, and he's suddenly feeling the urge to be back out there speaking. It's another kind of thing about speaking. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And his Uranus is at 6 degrees as well. I kind of like that too, because he's a bit of a radical in many ways.
Do you want to put the solar eclipse chart around this? Just
Sure, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But just I just would do quickly want to mention that that last quarter moon at the middle point of these two eclipses is it's at 2 Capricorn, but that's very close to his South Node series. So that's really igniting his kind of grief about what's going on and going, no, I'm not having any of this kind of thing. So yeah, let's go to the solar eclipse. So
While Louise is putting that up, I want to remind people that Mars, now that it is direct, is retracing territory that it was in October of 2024. So this is a
mhm,
move forward on things. Things got started then there was a redo, revisiting, and now we're implementing.
yeah. And we've talked about that Mars retrograde very many times because it's been very significant. And but look at this. Yeah, yeah. I'll let you dive in first again.
Oh
So
no, just the eclipse is at 9 Aries, which is on his Eris, and that's his own inner one part of his fighter mode. And see, with Mars conjunct Eris, this he's got a real balance of masculine and feminine, and this is part of why he can partner so well with a
mhm,
woman. I encourage you, if you haven't watched statements that his wife made during the campaign, she is a very, very able politician in her own right, so he can stand shoulder to shoulder or even stand back and point out because of this, because he's got that inner fuse inside of him, fusing, and the eclipse is setting that off and shooting it forward really dramatically.
yeah, yeah. So expect to see a lot more of Timmy Boy in many
And
ways.
as you see this going on, Mars moving direct by then will be at 22 Cancer, moving more and more and more into a square to his Jupiter, saying, "Be bigger, go big, go big, go big." This is the Hail Mary pass, maybe, I don't know. And it's at that point, Mars is going to be squaring Chiron in the sky, exactly, and moving into a square with transiting Eris. So
I'm gonna put move it forward to that Mars square Jupiter because we don't always get every chance to look at every chart in it,
sure.
so because it's also, of course, his Jupiter is on Harris's moon, and she's born on a full moon, 27-degree Libra, Aries opposition. So sorry, that's I didn't do the radix, so let's bring it back. There we go. It's April the 14th, not far away, which
Not
is
far away.
right as Venus goes direct as well. And by then, Mercury is direct and is moving back into Aries and conjunct that Neptune, which has moved into Aries for the first time. It will dip back into Pisces later in the year. But this is such go forward energy at this point. This is like huge. But of course, this is also squaring Harris's full moon. So amazing.
Not a coincidence that you were hearing from him.
No,
And notice that on that day, the moon in Scorpio, moon at 15 Scorpio, is moving into a square to Pallas Athena at 17 Aquarius up there in the 11th. Um,
mhm.
that's kind of dramatic, actually.
On his Neptune when it gets there too. So yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have
Yeah.
a real glamour or inspirational impact
Oh, definitely.
by that
And,
point.
and look at this conjunction on that day as well. I mean, and I know it's 3 degrees away from his Jupiter, but that's pretty big activation, I think, with the Sun conjunct
Yep.
Eris on that day, on his Jupiter, on Harris's moon as well. Woo. So we're going to look at the lotuses chart then.
Oh, why not?
Yeah,
People have been wanting, they've been
I
curious.
know they are, and this energy is so mutable. I am not going to predict that she is going to suddenly be reinstated or anything like that personally, but I do find it interesting that she is back. sending these emails and texts saying we are back together again, and things like that after a period of quiet. So which chart do we want to put? Well, I mean, we could start with that point in April.
Yeah,
Europe.
let's do that. So Uranus is currently sitting on her Jupiter. Uranus
Yes.
is currently at 24 Taurus. Why is this important? Okay, Jupiter in the 12th house is
Mhm.
very grounding, calming. I call that a cosmic nightlight. And so something's been turning things kind of, it's almost like Santa Claus. So something's been unlocking something behind the scenes for her. I've been saying this. And it may start to come forward. While that's happening, pay attention to Jupiter at 18 degrees of uh, Gemini. It's heading toward her ascendant. Jupiter's going to cross her ascendant, and as soon as it does, it's going to hit her north node. What she has come here to do, and bringing her mission bigger and bigger. And what did I say about walls? He then has that happening a few months afterwards. These are not people who are going into the dustbin of history. They have an enormous role now, this spring into this
Mhm.
summer. Big,
Enormous.
big, big. And there's a T square on this day in her chart with Mars in Cancer in between her sun and her moon. This means male and female, rational and emotional, logical and not logical, both pushing for taking action to fight for the country.
And this is, we have a time for her. So this is definitely in her second house, this Mars as well, which is, her self-esteem, her self-worth, but also how she kind of her resources, all her resources, including how she will earn her money. So these are all added factors. And I just want to go back to the whole time of retrogrades.
Mhm.
A lot of astrologers said she won't win because Saturn was on her Chiron at the election time. I'm not going to go back to all that, and opposing all this Virgo energy down here. She was born in that Uranus Virgo generation in the 60s. Well, now it's all moved away from that, because Saturn was, had been retrograde but was sitting on that during the election. But there's going to be all this revisiting of all those retrogrades in so many ways, not just the Mars one. Jupiter went retrograde at 21 Gemini, and didn't quite make it to her ascendant. Well, as Kathy said, it's heading that way very soon. So, all those things are being revisited. That's what retrogrades do when they travel back over the degrees. So,
And speaking of that,
mhm.
Mars opposed Pluto
Oh, yes.
exactly the day before the election. On January 3rd, the day of the certification, it opposed Pluto again. And guess what it's going to do?
It's going to
One
do it
time.
third time. Yeah, all these aspects keep revisiting. And what date is that? Do you remember? Well, I'm just going to go to it. Here we go.
Yeah, it's
April 26th. There we go.
so,
Mars opposed Pluto for the last time at 3 degrees. Oh, and if Walser's moon is anywhere near right, of course
right.
that's on his moon. You know.
So
But this
it's,
is all in her third, second, eighth house as well. Resources, all that kind of shared resources. But it's also finishing a story, like Kathy said, and it's square her Mercury.
talents, abilities, how she earns her living.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh, and her series is also at that 5 degree Capricorn mark. Ceres is really important planet, guys. Don't let anybody tell you it's just an asteroid. And Ceres in Capricorn really kind of wants to nurture it, at this kind of level. I would say it wants to nurture the structures we already have, but also maybe to kind of rebuild them in a way that better serves everybody. So, and that's last quarter moon, that pivotal day, is right on her series. So there you go.
And uh, Uranus at 26 Taurus, behind the scenes,
Hmm.
is moving into an adjustment aspect to her sun in the fifth house. So something is being tinkered with that's about the role that she plays. And it does feel like it's still with a partnership with Walls and possibly a partnership with the US, not out of the realm of possibility. And notice that Mercury is on her Eris exactly on April 26th.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So things are coming back. And, just over globally, the evidence of election interference has been coming up over and over again. And I know people are like, why didn't they do something? Well, I don't think there was the evidence. I really don't think they could prove anything, um, you know, in such a short time. Um, because if it was all kind of done very last minute, if everybody remembers. Suddenly Elon was on the stage and suddenly alleged election interference, should I say, for entertainment purposes only. Suddenly Elon was on the stage. Suddenly, like Hare, what's his name, was saying, Elon knows those machines and all those kind of things that were said. But that was like right at the last minute. And it's like, I think we've said it before, it looks like there was multi-pronged kind of ways. Greg Palast did a movie called Vigilante, talking about one kind of voter suppression. Then, there was that kind of talk of the machines being tampered with at the tabulation level, that a couple of organizations have looked at the data and said it's, strongly suggests that they were interfered with. And there's been various kind of threads to that. So it probably has taken time to put things together, or is taking time. And we always said that some of it would come from other countries. So who
And
knows?
do follow. There are countries saying that they're going to go after Musk for messing with their elections. There are European countries saying they're not letting him off the hook.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and you might look at who does it benefit to irritate all of our allies in every imaginable direction. Someone
Yeah.
has now made four statements of they rigged it and I won. Most recently last week on camera on CNN. So you can say, well, what did they rig? Well, it's in a context that is, well, anyway, he could say, oh, I
Yeah.
was talking about 2020, but the way that yeah,
Well, I think there's enough
I'll leave it at
past,
that.
past there's enough past kind of evidence to suggest that everything that he talks about, every kind of accusation, is a confession. It's been a common phrase that has been
Yeah,
used. So
yeah.
we don't know for sure, but the astrology kind of points to a lot of this, as we're trying to show. So,
And we have
and
consistently said March is crazy, March is really different, difficult, but things feel very different once we get into April. And there are people who are going to be much more prominent than they have been, increasingly, increasingly, increasingly. So strap in, folks, monitor your news consumption, really, really take care of yourself. If you find it really getting to you, please stop. Go outside, go spend time with people that whose company you enjoy. Be kind to yourself. You can't fight every single battle and you can't fight every single day. And we all have our own role that we're playing. And sometimes that role changes from day to day to day. So taking care of yourself, number one, taking care of the people around you, number two, picking a thing or two you can do on a regular basis, number three. And then
mhm,
just
yeah.
we're on a really bumpy ride for a few weeks.
We are, but I also just would love people to just feel into the fact that this time we're in now, with lunar maximum, two eclipses, Venus and Mercury retrograde, All of that is condensed into this one period, and it is kind of almost like a portal of revelation and rebirth and regeneration and all those things. And it's happening within you and happening everywhere. So, some of it is just having faith and trusting that it's going to unfold, because everything's coming out. We can see it every day. Everything is being revealed. And so try not to fall into the shadow of Pisces, which is fear, because yes, some people unfortunately will experience some, I think, short-term suffering, and we wish it wouldn't be so, but we can probably best supporting those people actually that are kind of hurting. I was having a long chat with my friend who lives in Kiev this morning, and she's really been been having PTSD, waking up screaming,
Oh,
I know, because of that conversation in the Oval Office. So I went to support her, and I think that's probably some of the best things we can do right now: support each other. Oh, I'm going to cry. She was quite upset, so yeah.
well, Neptune is at 29 degrees in
Yes.
Pisces, which is the most interconnected spot in the entire zodiac. It's also, I heard Michael Luton call it the degree of ultimate sorrow. It's also where Fred Rogers' son was. And one thing that's often said about him is look for the helper. So you get to be the helper.
We
How are you
do.
the helper? How are you the one looking for the helpers? That's a really good way to steer this and take some agency back.
I agree. And it can be simple things like having a Facebook Messenger conversation with somebody that's hurting, like I did this morning. I can't fly over to Ukraine and just see her, but you know, we can we can support in many ways. So, and it's square my ascendant this Neptune. So,
Oh,
oh, talk about compassion overload. But anyway, so all right, I think that's all from me. Yeah, from you.
find some ways to have some fun.
Yes, I do
Please
that
do.
every day.
Please do
I know.
that.
My fun last night was the fact it snowed right through the eclipse last night, so there's no way I was going to see it. So weirdly, for an eclipse, so it felt like my restless sleep that I sometimes have on full moons was eclipsed, and I slept like a baby and
Oh,
felt
lucky
so
you.
refreshed. So there you go. And, but by the way, that's why I've got this is a picture from a snowy mountain took by my husband one day from our road. So there you go. All right, see you all next time. Bye.